Ally attack is one of the most useful skills in the game, but which is the best, which is the worst? What champion should you be using? I get that question all the time, so it's time to tackle it in. Let's go from worst to best, the 15 ally attack champions in the game. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Madcap and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to tackle ally attack. And to be clear, this is all champions that have an ally attack mechanic in their kit. Now I'm not telling you what the best champions are with ally attack. I'm telling you what the best ally attack skills are and the champions those are on. Now, if there needs to be a tiebreaker, that is when we look at the champion and the rest of their kit. For example, a champion that has an absolute bonkers best in class ally attack, but the rest of their skills are garbage, would be lower than someone who has the second best ally attack in the game, but the rest of their kit is so amazing. So I did take that into consideration when I made this list from worst to best. I also kind of want to put out there are 15 champions. I would say 13 of these 15 champions, the ally attack is actually somewhat significant, meaning I would put them on a tier list from B to S. I didn't do a tier list because usually you want a bell curve on a tier list, but it wouldn't be like that for this. I really feel like there's only 2 champions that the ally attack really isn't that useful, and there's one that's arguably very, very, very situational. After that, it is sky's the limit with the rest of them. I think you can use them all. So why don't we jump right into it with number 15 on the list. Let's take a look. And there are 2 uncommon champions, and they're 15 and 14 on the list. How did I decide what to put them in? Well, it was easy. One of them you get at the very beginning, and that's Crusader, so we put him 14. But first, let's talk about Sergeant. He's got an ally attack. It's on a 3-turn cooldown. Sorry, a 2-turn cooldown. So technically, kind of a neat skill, kind of a neat way. If you happen upon this upon Sergeant and you're using him for food, why not throw a little gear on him and use him in the early game just to help you get past some of the stages a little bit quicker. So he's not, again, the skill itself not that useless, but it is a 1-turn, or it is a 1 at random ally. So unless you're using it like with your starter champion or the first champion, maybe it's Rondo you built, and you're just putting the 2 together to run, that might be a cool thing. Or if you're trying to clear up, you know, you're going back and you're trying to 3-star everything, and you pick someone with an AoE A1, put Sergeant with them, and then you basically get 2 AoE A1s, and then if they're fast enough, you get a 3rd one, essentially. So it's a really neat way to kind of easily clear some of those early levels, get that 3 stars to get the extra free rewards you get for filling out campaign. Outside of that, probably not useful. Now we go to 14. Pretty much the same story. 3-turn, 2-turn booked. You'd never book this champion, but you could do it in the same sort of way. So 15, 14. I gave Crusader 14 because you get Crusader at the beginning of the game without pulling any shards. It's the first free champion you get from the round. It's part of the tutorial. It automatically gives you Crusader. So everyone will have a Crusader in their account right away, like within, I think, level 3 or 4 of campaign 1. So now it's got a little tricky. Now, surprisingly, the next one on the list is a legendary champion, which I didn't think would be possible, but it is so specific and so niche that I think that it doesn't really help in the grand scheme of things, because it does pigeonhole you both on what team you're building. But again, we're talking B to S. They're all very good. I just find this one's probably the least. It's Sacred Order again, and this time it's not Cupidus. I psyched you out. It's Astralon. Astralon has an ally attack on his A1, but it is only Countess Lix on the team. And what happens is, if Countess Lix is on your team, she will team up and join up the attack if they're on the same team. They'll both use their default skill, obviously. So, if you have Astralon and Countess Lix on the same team together, every time you use his A1, she will also use her A1. Kind of cool, but the reality is, there's not a lot of teams that you're going to put the 2 together. You can't use them in faction wars or different factions, so you'd have to do it in some kind of dungeon farming, and a lot of the times there's just better teams. Astralon you might be using for the stun, but you probably don't need Countess Lix on the same team. But if you can, and you make a team work, then the 2 ally attack together, and it's better than 1 attack, right? He's got a decreased defense, she adds extra damage, it's all pretty good. Next up on the list is a rare, And finally, we're leaving the Sacred Orders. We're going to go over to the High Elves. I really like her because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she is farmable from the High Elf stages. But she has a 2-person ally attack on a 4-turn cooldown, and it is 2 random allies. But again, it's a double ally attack. But the reason why I actually like her and I would consider her B is she also has 5% poison, a 50-50 chance on a 3-hitter. So 3 attempts to put 3 attempts of a 50% chance to put a 5% poison for 2 turns. In an early clan boss team, you can use her along with a couple other cool champions like Frozen Banshee, Gravechill Killer, and together they will fill up that poison bar quite significantly in early clan boss. A lot of people like using Monk as well, who would give you kind of a similar thing, but I think that this is kind of a sleeper champion in the early game because she's so easy to obtain. You probably have her on your account in the first 10 games. And until you flesh out your clan boss team with better champions, she's going to be better than nothing. She's actually pretty darn good. So number 12 on the list is Hyria. Now, we go to now this is where it gets out. These are the frustrating ones because although in a bubble they're B, but the fact that they're epics, and this is the case, really kind of frustrates me. And with that, we're going to go back to Sacred Order. Is she Sacred Order? No. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Another Sacred Order. Apparently Sacred Order is like joining the attack. And it's Lady Atessa. The biggest problem with hers is quite easy. It attacks one enemy with 2 random allies. Now, this is one of the first ones that actually has some extra to it, and that is the fact that if their damage will be increased by 20% if the target is under a fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, stun, or petrification. So any type of crowd control, you get extra 20% damage, but it says only the allies joining the attack. So it doesn't say her damage is increased if that's the case, and everyone uses their defense skill. So it's okay. Plus, as a total, she's got a single target 1-turn stun, which is a big snooze fast, and a 40% chance block buffs 2 turns on an A1, but it's only a 40% chance. Overall, her kit is boring. She's got no survivability. Her attack, she hits hard, but there's a lot of champions that hit hard. So overall, I'm going to put her at number 11 and just barely ahead of Hyria. Actually, on the fly, I'm going to tell you right now, Hyria is better than Lady Atessa for ally attack. We're going to flip it. Atessa is going to go 12, and Hyria is going to go 11. Number 10 on the list is someone that was featured by none other than Hell Hades in a clan boss all epic team, and that is one of the surprise champions, Morag, and she comes in at number 10. So the reason why she isn't higher is because frankly everyone from here on forward brings in another or more ally, so she's the last of the 2 ally. And again, the same thing, there's nothing special about this other than she does get an extra turn if an enemy's killed. So if you're looking at using her as kind of a budget version in the arena, boom, you can kill champions and keep going. Her with Finax would be great because you can use this. He might kill, block, revive, then she gets an extra turn to do other stuff like survivability. And that's where Hell Hades really highlighted her kit for the clan boss, is if you're in a non-unkillable, non-block damage team, non-infinity comp, all those sort of ones, the strengthen buff is so incredibly important in this sort of game, in this sort of comp. Strengthen reduces damage significantly in the clan boss. So having this really helps, and it's an all-ally 3-turn cooldown for 2 turns, which if you're going even a 3-2 or a 2-1 or any type of comp, you're looking at getting always up strengthen, which is a huge bonus. So that's why we put her here. Unfortunately, we can't move her higher simply because she's only got a 2 ally attack. Number 9. So number 9 is an arguable, and this is why I wanted to put that preface that I'm not talking about champions with ally attack. I'm talking about the ally attack skill, and then we take into consideration the champion. Number 9 is Necron. Now, Necrons can steamroll in the arena. It gets pretty crazy, but it's important to remember that, where is it here? He teams up with allies to attack one enemy. All allies under ally protection buffs placed by this champion will join the attack. So that depends on how many ally protect he has. You'll have 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 at some point. But because it is so inconsistent. Now, in dungeons, not nearly as strong an ability because typically you're clearing the waves before he starts ramping up on the number of allies he brings in. In the arena, his kit himself, Necron himself, is absolutely overpowered. But the other negative about Necron is he is used, not exclusively, but significantly on arena defenses. And you can kind of exploit that to proc off Mortal Macabre. You do it all the time. Anytime I see a Necron, I bring in Mortal Macabre as my lead because Necron by default will always ally attack your leader. So you can actually use that to your advantage to try to get that secret skill. There's other areas where you can do, anyone who's like Seeker who procs a defense up, any of those sort of skills where a person getting hit, you can automatically get that ally attack targeting. But Mortal Macabre is probably the most significant one. Put him in Stone Skin, Mortal Macabre will survive, it'll proc it. You'll have the ability to use his peril almost immediately as soon as it's your turn. So there is great to Necron, the ally attack part of his skill, but there is some drawbacks, and that's why we put it as low down as we did at number 9. Number 8 on the list is a champion I just did a review on, and he's kind of the worst of the better, is what I'll say. I'm not a big fan of his kit. I don't think he does enough damage. I think he needs a workover for that. But I will say he teams up with 3 random allies, attacks a single ally. It's the very basic version of it. There's no fancy extra on it. 4-turn cooldown, but it is the first one that's a guaranteed 3 ally pull, and that's one of the important things we want to have. Whereas Necron can pull 3 allies, he can pull 2, he can pull 1. And Necron gets the extra turn if it doesn't kill anyone, which is kind of neat, but it's inconsistent. When you talk about consistency in the skill itself, Catacomb Counselor comes in slightly ahead at number 8. Number 7 is one I don't have, but just based on their kit, they've got some good, they've got some bad, and that's Lanthril the Chosen. It's a 4-turn, 3 allies, gives you turn meter and buff. Now, the good news and bad news is it gives you turn meter, and it increases the duration of all ally buffs. That's a huge advantage. It is only still a 3 ally, which means in Hydra, it can be a little bit less fun to use. Also, you have to keep in mind that turn meter, so you have to really account for it in, say, clan boss rotations. The flip side is this is one of the primary champions that can activate the Infinity Comp, which is one of the best ways to do a quick clan boss because you can ramp up the damage so significantly on this champion that it just makes her very fun to play. The reason why I have her lower than some of the others is just the others either bring more champions, bring more utility, or both. And so you'll see that when we get to some of the others here. And the next one on the list is Krilla. Now, Krilla, I actually, in of itself, you kind of think, boy, I think Lanthril is worth more. However, the big difference with Krilla is that I enjoy Krilla's better than Lanthril is that it's on a 3-turn cooldown. It is the only ally attack on a 3-turn cooldown other than the wonderful Crusader and Sergeant, who are actually on a 2-turn cooldown. But this one's on a 3-turn cooldown. The problem with this, the reason why I even hesitate putting it this high, but ultimately that 3-turn cooldown and the rest of Krilla's kit made me put it here, is the fact that it's 3 random allies, but it's on a random enemy. So she'll stun one enemy, and then it's a 1 in however many enemies there are chance to ally attack a particular second enemy. It might be the same, it might be a different. So you can't really pinpoint target using this to get rid of it. Really good on boss fights when it's irrelevant on who the target is, but a little less useful in things like Arena, where it can target the wrong person and do untold amounts of harm to you, depending on how you're trying to use this. But we still have to notice, A, 3-turn cooldown, B, it's got an increased attack, increased crit rate, all enemies, or all allies, on a 4-turn cooldown. It's a 3-turn ability, so huge. And even her A1 puts a shield on this maximum of this champion's max HP on the ally with the lowest HP. So very strong overall kit. It's got some very tough things outside of boss fights, which is why she isn't higher on the list. But the fact that it's a 3-turn cooldown with Krilla's overall kit and damage ability makes it why it is as high as it is on the list. Number 5. Number 5 is it's an interesting one, and I first didn't put it this high, but upon second look, it is so incredibly OP under the right conditions that I couldn't help but put it on the list. And that is Marichka the Unbreakable. She has an A1 that does it's only 1 at random ally enjoying the attack. And the reason why I put it this high is that's on her A1. So even in boss fights, dungeon fights, you just every time. So imagine you bring her into a boss, right? Maybe the boss doesn't put debuff, so you don't have to even worry. You can just lock out her A3. I know that's crazy, but for a dungeon, maybe you need that. So maybe you keep the shield on a 3-turn cooldown. And then every time she does this, she also brings in an ally for extra damage. The allies you use could be AoE. The allies you use could be hard-hitting, like Alika A1s or Finnex A1s. There's so much with this A1 that just helps you that she can just keep using it and keep using it. But the reason why it's higher, as high as it is also because if you have Taurus, then he will always be the one. And Taurus is absolutely explosively damage-dealing greatness. So it's not like Astralon where it has to be Taurus. It can be anyone, but also Taurus. And I just think, in my opinion, maybe I have this too high. I could be biased. I don't have her. But I just feel like the ability to bring someone on your A1 every time you use your A1 is a very significantly strong ability that you can craft a team around to make it be absolutely bonkers good. On top of a kit that is absolutely obscene, that includes revives all dead allies with HP and turn meter when she's killed. You place a block damage on all allies whenever this ally receives a HP burn, poison, or bomb debuff. She has the shield and the strength on a 3-turn cooldown. She has a cleanse and turn meter boost. It's just everything about her kit. But of course, she also has ally speed battles. Everything about her kit is obscene. But I think that's what makes her so big. On even though it's just a single ally join on her A1, I will not take it back. 5th place easily. Number 4. These are where we're getting to the nitty gritty. And number 4 on this list, I am going to someone that may be controversial. Not everyone has the same love for him, but I absolutely believe that a top 4 ally protect is Lanthril, and there are very specific reasons why I believe this. Now, the rest of these champions are all 4-turn cooldown, so that isn't a differentiator. But what I do see is you've got this 30% crit damage on all allies, then teams up with all allies to attack a single enemy. The reason why I put this above everyone before it is all allies. That means if you're in Hydra, it's 6 people. If you're in Dungeons, it's 5. If you're in Arena, it's 4. But regardless of where you are, everyone gets to attack. You don't have to figure out Krilla's leaving one person behind in Dungeons and picking a random ally. You've got Lanicus, who's only taking 3 allies. You've got all these different problems. And at the reality, it is also giving you an increased crit damage. So with a lot of attack-based champions, you're just upping the damage quotient on all these champions very simply, very easily. He also has a pretty bonkers kit, and people are very appreciative of what he brings. He brings a shield for 3 turns equal to 20% of an HP champion with 23,000 base HP to this champion's max HP. And if there's any dead allies, it's 30%. It can't be removed, can't be stolen, can't be transferred, can't be spread, can't have its duration increased or decreased by enemies or allies. So unfortunately, he isn't an infinity one because you can't increase the duration or any of that like you can with the shields in Clan Boss Infinity comps, all the world record comps. So that is the one downside which brings him down from the list. But overall, I think this champion is so underrated, and I think 20% more damage against targets under shield. How many targets are in shield buffs in the arena? That's right, all of them. Once you get to Sunday and you're fighting in high gold 5 into platinum, there's shields everywhere. So the fact that he can offer 20% more damage plus 30% more crit damage brings every ally, regardless of the scenario, makes this champion on my list number 4. Number 3, and this was tough because I almost put Lanthril ahead of him, but at the end of the day, this guy is just the OG, and I felt like we had to give props where props is due, and that is our old boy. Where is he? Longbeard. So Longbeard actually has a very underrated kit. He's an attack-based champion. Here it is, attacks one enemy with 4 allies. So the only place that this suffers is in Hydra so far, because it would leave one behind, but increases the damage inflicted by allies by 20%. It's very similar to Atessa's in that it's not similar at all. Atessa needs them to be under crowd control, and she's only bringing 2. Longbeard's bringing 4 of your allies, and they're all getting extra damage by 20%, just like that on a 4 cooldown. He also has crit rate in dungeons. He also has a weaken, which I think people forget, but he's got a weaken on a 3-turn cooldown, 2 when booked. And then ignore shield and block damage buffs on his A1 as a damage champion. I think this is the OG. I put him in top 3 because of that extra 20% damage. In a lot of the Doom Tower runs that are speed runs, that 20% damage is the difference between a 4-turn or a 6-turn rotation on some of the bosses. And it just, or 8 instead of 10, those sort of things. That 20% damage can really ramp up depending on the champion you're putting it on, and it really makes a difference. I find, for example, my Whisper, my Alika, those champions hit so much harder on that A1 when he's using it, as opposed to if I just swap in any of the other champions, including Lanthril, who is adding that 30% crit damage. It's just the 20% total damage, just more impactful. Number 2 on my list, and this is it, 2 or 1, who's going to win? Well, number 2 on my list, because of the pure amount of utility it brings and everywhere it goes, is none other than the Barbarian Ferric in the Fat. He is my spirit animal, and one of the great champions. He reminds me of Belwas, Mighty Belwas, if you've ever read or watched Game of Thrones. He reminds me more of the books, just his look and feel and that sort of thing. He's even got like the cuff to remind him where he came from, all that stuff. The champion, Mighty Belwas. It's Belwas, right? Anyway, so why is he better than everyone else except for my number 1? Because he puts an increased crit rate and increased crit damage for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, which effectively can make this basically 100% uptime, which allows you to build your team around crit rate at a lowered, right? You can put 30% crit rate. That means everyone only needs 70% crit rate on the team. You can also put in a champion that has a crit rate aura, and it's absolutely obscene the amount of saved crit rate that you can put on other stats on your champions when you're using them in the Hydra, or more specifically in the clan boss, where this guy is the absolute king. And that is why, the other reason I put him ahead, even though he takes all allies except him, so Hydra safe, as long as you don't expect him to take down, or sort of give damage. But I mean, the fact that he also has 8 birds, he also has poisons, he also has a decreased defense at a 50% clip on his A1, and he basically has a reverse ally protection where he reduces the damage on him. His stats aren't that survivable. That near 1100 defense is pretty nice bonus. Not quite 15,000 HP, but the fact that he's getting 20% less damage and he spreads that damage out amongst all the other champions, as long as you make use of that, it's a very strong skill, a very strong ability. Overall, I think this guy is just a boss. He's bringing more people to the fight than anyone, except for, of course, Lanthril and the person that comes in first. And he's got the crit damage, and he's got the crit rate, and he's got the rest of his kit. I mean, you could argue it, but well, you'd be wrong. He is number 2 on the list. Which brings me to my number 1 ally attack champion, and probably the number 1 champion on this list, regardless. Well, no, Marichka is probably number 1. But an argument could be made for good old-fashioned Cardiel. Cardiel is the best ally attack champion in the game. His ally attack on a 4-turn cooldown adds the same increased crit rate and increased crit damage. It is only 2 turns, though. Keep that in mind. But it decreases the cooldown of this skill by 1 turn if an enemy is killed from this attack. That means in dungeons and in arena, this guy just excels over Ferric, because you can just keep that cooldown coming and get him to do more turns. Now, it is only, like I said, a 2-turn crit damage crit rate, but at this point, you've got a guy who's got a 19% speed aura. If you're using him, as I'm using him in the clan boss, you're going at a 2-to-1 clip, which does effectively make the increased crit rate. Actually, I have him at a 3-to-1 rate, and I don't even use that. I should retool mine for less crit rate. Except for I think I use the champions in other areas. Anyway, that's something I can argue with myself about. That increased crit rate makes this such an easy build champion to have. The increased crit damage, extra damage, ally. But if you were humming and hawing, also keep in mind that he receives all allies receive 20% less damage from champions in the Demon Spawn, Undead Horde, and Knight's Revenant, which means, oh, there's a Duchess team that has a Canderfont in the back. Well, don't worry, there's a 20% less damage. Oh, Knight's Revenant, Georgie, anybody? 20% less damage. Undead Hordes, well, Undead Hordes, who's gonna hurt you? Necron? Anyway, I guess you could look at our good old friend Rhodos. So against those 3 factions, he's going to reduce the damage. Great for Arena. Ally attacks, there's a 15% chance for him to team up. So he has a second ally attack where he just has a 15%, which is bookable, to a 30% chance to just join in with his default attack. He always joins Sishia. So if you're using Sishia and Cardiel together in the Hydra, which is a really big, really popular comp, it's even better chance. And this guy's got a heal on his A1. So he's ally attacking. He's healing you. He's got a chance to ally attack again as a passive. And if you have Sishia, it's a guaranteed. And he can only join ally attacks once per turn. So it won't happen when they're counterattacking or they're teaming up. So you can't use like ally attack from Ferric to make Sishia ally attack, which means he'll join that. Well, no, you can't do that. But overall, such an amazing kit. But that's not all. He also has a cleanse, block debuffs for 2 turns, and a revive on death. And the revive on death can't be removed. Need I say more? And like I mentioned, he's got attacks one enemy, heals all allies by 7.5% of their max HP, and places a true fear if the target is a demon spawn, knights, undead hordes, or knights rep. So overall, just a ridiculous kit, a ridiculous champion, one of the top 10 champions in the game overall, and definitely the best ally attack champion in the game. What are your thoughts? Did I hit it right? Did I get it wrong? Doesn't really matter. Just know that those are my thoughts of the top 15. What are your thoughts? What are your top 15? Let me know in the comments down below. Is there anyone or anything I forgot? By the way, if I missed an ally attack champion, you can blame hellhades.com because that's where I got all the source information for ally attack champions. With that said, thank you for watching the video. I appreciate you. Please be kind, be safe. We'll see you in the next one.